I think one of the Straw Hat streams might fall completely flat. I'm talking about Zoro. Don't get it twisted, I love him. He's our stoic king. If the word loyalty was a person, it would be him. And he's the only character who can get lost on a straight path and still end up looking cool doing it. But we need to talk about his dream, about becoming the greatest swordsman in the world. Because the further we get into the story, the more I realize that Zoro isn't just in a race of his own. He's the only one at the starting blocks. Welcome to the Swordsman problem. Think about the Pirate King title for a second, which of course is Luffy's dream. A lot of people share that same dream. It's crowded like a mosh pit. You've got the worst generation, the Jonko, probably some East Blue pirate named John, and you could technically count the Marines as well, even though they just want the One Piece. But they're all clawing at each other to reach Laugh Tale. Every time Luffy takes a step forward, he's stepping on someone else's toes. But imagine if Luffy was the only person on the sea who actually wanted to be Pirate King. The stakes would vanish. Yet, that is exactly what Oda has done to Zoro. We're over 1100 chapters in, and Zoro is the only person that genuinely is running the race for the world's strongest swordsman. I'm sure a lot of characters would like to be, but they haven't really told us. It doesn't feel like they genuinely want it. Most of the people Zoro fights aren't playing the same sport as him. We need to distinguish between a swordsman and just some guy with a sword, because that line has been blurred for decades. Zoro is looking for real duels, but he keeps getting stuck in street fights with weirdos who happen to be holding pieces of metal. Early on, he fought the Meowban brothers, who are basically two cat boys who forgot to cut their fingernails. Then out of nowhere, at Baratie, we got an absolute peak moment for Zoro. He finally fought a real swordsman, and it just happened to be the greatest one in the world, Mihawk. It was incredible, filled with emotions and even stronger promises. And then, he went right back to fighting goofs like Hachan, a six-armed octopus who fought swordsmanship meant holding the most amount of swords. Now, I'll give a pass to Mr. One, even though he was a blade man and not a traditional swordsman. That fight was just so beautiful. Das Bones with his Super no Mi was a great opponent, because he provided the perfect setup for Zoro to learn how to cut steel. That felt like real progress. But after that, the swordsman aspect of his enemy started to feel like an afterthought, or not even a thought at all sometimes. Take Kaku. He's a 4-sword style user, but he uses the 6 powers first and his sword second. He's more of a high-speed gymnast than a swordsman. And he also just felt like Hachan's creepy uncle. Or Pika, the guy has a sword the size of a building, but he spends 90% of the fight hiding inside a mountain using his devil fruit. The sword is basically a prop. And then I think Wano filled a lot of us with hope. The land of samurai. This was the perfect opportunity to give Zoro a gauntlet of legendary blade masters. Instead we got King. And King is cool, I guess. Well, his design is. My doorknob has a more interesting personality. And he literally looks at Zoro in the eye and tells him he doesn't care about styles or traditions. He's a Lunarian brawler who just happens to have a blade for the aesthetic. I get it. Creative fighting styles are fun, and I want to give Oda some real credit for all the cool ones he's come up with. But in a world with 83 legendary blades, why couldn't at least some of these high-tier commanders be real swordsmen? When your opponent doesn't care about the art of the sword, the victor doesn't feel like a step toward being the world's strongest swordsman. It just feels like a power level increase. This might be a reach, but it's kinda like a world-class chess player getting hyped up because he beat some guy in a fist fight. Oh right, there was actually one real swordsman he fought in the middle of all this. I'm talking about Ryuma, and even then, it wasn't even the real him. It was his moldy corpse being piloted by Brook's shadow. It's a bit sad when the most pure sword duel you've had in a decade was against a literal fossil, but that fight gave us a glimpse of what this dream is supposed to be about. Because Ryuma used the legendary Shusu, one of the 21 great grade blades. Which brings us to the next issue of the loot vacuum. In a world where the power system is literally built upon graded blades, you'd think these things would be the legendary items everyone is grinding for. We're told that there are 83 legendary Mito, 12 supreme, 21 great, and 50 skillful. That is an incredible base that should be driving the entire narrative for every swordsman on the sea. But in reality, Zoro has fought exactly 0 out of the 12 supreme grade swords in a serious duel, unless you count that 5-minute humbling he took from Mihawk, who of course used the Yoru. Zoro has spent over 1,000 chapters chasing the title of World's Strongest, and he's only gone up against one other graded blade in a real fight, held by a corpse. Think about how insane that is. Wano, the land of samurai, the literal forge of the world's greatest steel, should have been a gallery of legendary blades. Now as I'm editing this, I realized that we actually saw a lot of graded blades in Wano, but we didn't see any of Zoro's opponents holding one, and that's what makes me sad. I expected at least some of the high-ranking beast pirates to be rocking named graded swords that Zoro actually had to respect. Instead, graded blades are treated like those rare holographic Pokemon cards that collectors keep in a plastic slab and never actually use. They're mentioned in data books and SPS sections like they're the holy grail, but on the actual pages, they're missing in action. If these blades are so special, why is Zoro the only person who seems to be noticing them? If you want to receive a graded blade in your mailbox, make sure to hit subscribe. I'll send it within a couple of hours.
Please note that this is a joke and you will receive nothing but One Piece videos if you subscribe to this channel.
It's hard to feel like he's climbing to the top of the mountain when it feels like the author forgot to draw the other climbers. And speaking of missing climbers, we have to talk about the mid-boss that Oda basically hit with the delete key, Vista. In the middle of Marineford, we got this great moment where Vista, the greatest swordsman on the Whitebeard Pirates, actually clashed with Mihawk. We actually saw a real sword duel, and Mihawk, who usually finishes people in a matter of seconds, actually acknowledged him, and in the end they even agreed to postpone the duel. Vista should have been the guy that Zoro had to beat before he even gets a sniff of Mihawk, but since Marineford, Vista has effectively vanished. I understand that your captain died, but you've had over 2 years to grieve now. You gotta get back into the action, my guy. I'm just wondering, where are the contenders? In a real sport, you don't just jump from fighting at the local gym to challenging the world heavyweight champion. But because One Piece hasn't used other characters like Vista, Zoro is going to go from fighting Mihawk in his rookie days to go through years of fighting random brawlers to then at the end of his journey once again fight the world's strongest, without any real swordsman in between. I mean, sure, there's a 1% chance Vista might show up in the final saga, but with every passing chapter, the chances of that happening just get lower. I really do hope at least some character shows interest in the title of Strongest Swordsman. Personally, I think Shiryu would be a great pick. That would make their fight so much more hype if it was treated like a semi-final before Zoro faces Mihawk. But the lack of competition isn't just about power levels, it's about the soul of the dream. And that brings us to what I've decided to call the Tashigi Tragedy. Tashigi was introduced as the perfect ideological rival to Zoro. She was his opposite. She didn't just want to be strong, she wanted to reclaim the legendary swords from criminals. She challenged the morality of Zoro's dream. She made the world of swordsmanship feel like it had rules and philosophy. But since she's been sidelined so hard that she's basically a background character who occasionally shows up to look shocked. By making her a non-threat, the story lost the one person who could make Zoro's journey about more than just swinging harder. Without a rival like Tashigi pushing the ethics of the blade, Zoro's dream has become a simple math problem. Haki plus physical strength equals win. The actual art of the sword, it feels kinda dead. It's also worth talking about how Haki has changed the way of the sword. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does change the math. In the early days, Zoro's growth was measured by technique, learning the breadth of all things, to cut steel, or mastering the lion's song. Now, high-level duels often feel like they're decided by who has the stronger spirit, meaning Haki. To be fair, Oda did add an extra layer of complexity here, specifically for swordsmen. We saw this with Enma. Zoro couldn't just swing it, he had to essentially tame the sword, because it was constantly trying to drain his armament Haki and kill him. It turned swordsmanship into a test of spiritual endurance, which is a cool concept, but the irony is that Zoro is basically the only character who actually has to deal with this mechanic, because no one else cares about swordsmanship. Everyone else is just out here brawling, while Zoro is fighting his own equipment just to stay in the game. Let's get back to regular Haki for a second. If the winner of a duel is simply the person with stronger conqueror's coating, then the title isn't World's Strongest Swordsman. It starts to feel like World's Best Haki User, who happens to like katanas. If Shanks and Mihawk fought tomorrow, would we see a display of god-tier fencing, or just two massive red and black lightning bolts colliding until one of the guy's arms gives out? If it's the latter, the swordsmanship part of the dream starts to feel secondary. So where does this leave us? Does all this mean that Zoro's journey is a failure? Absolutely not. Even with its missing pieces, Zoro remains one of the most compelling characters in the series, because of his sheer conviction. His journey isn't just about the dudes he cut down. It's about the fact that he started as a kid in a dojo with a promise to a dead friend and carried that weight all the way to the rooftop on Onigashima and beyond. The art of the blade might be getting overshadowed by Haki, but Zoro's loyalty and his stubborn will to be the best still make him a great character. My concern is simply that when he finally stands across Mihawk, we want it to feel like the end of his long climb, not just a 1v1 in a vacuum. We want to feel the weight of all those graded blades and the history of every rival who should have been standing in his way. Zoro has the heart, the discipline and a moveset that can level mountains. I just hope that when he finally takes that crown, it feels as big as his ambition, because a king is only as great as the kingdom he conquers, and Zoro deserves a kingdom that actually showed up to fight. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Make sure to comment Red King to confuse everyone that didn't make it here. Also, I'm willing to bet my entire channel that you're gonna love this video, so if you don't, just send me an email and the channel's yours. Goodbye.